Growing up, class presentation days were some of my favorite days in school, but not for the reasons you're probably thinking. For one, it gave me the opportunity to wear a very cute outfit, just like right now. On top of that, any day that I got to talk in front of a group of people without the consequence of my desk moving, that was gonna be a great day. And also, just like right now, I'd be the center of attention, even if it was just for a limited time only. On top of that, when I gave my presentations, I made sure to do such a good job and be so thorough to avoid getting asked a question. In fact, it was a personal challenge. I did not want any questions. As I went through undergrad, grad school, and now as a PhD candidate, I'm realizing that logic was extremely flawed. And in fact, questions rooted in curiosity are imperative to keep a conversation going, create more meaningful dialogue and engagement. By the time I'm finished talking, I want everyone to feel empowered to stop avoiding the questions and embrace them as a mode of curiosity. So I'm currently a fifth-year PhD candidate studying something called translational biology, medicine, and health. Now that name is significantly more complicated than what you believe it probably is, and essentially it just means that we want to take our science from the bench or laboratory setting to the bedside. Another way to consider this is that it's a relationship or a collaboration between scientists and community members. Now, like any good relationship, we need a few very important qualities: love, mutual understanding, and a lot of communication. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm not talking to you about love today, but I will touch on 2 out of the 3. Mutual understanding. What even is science? Well, science starts as a question. In fact, science is a process of discovery guided by a whole lot of questions, and I like asking questions. On top of that, communication is so vital for any relationship. We have to make sure that both parties are speaking a similar language, that they can be open with one another, and most importantly, be curious. But speaking of relationships, I probably can think of a time where many of us felt like we were in a very toxic or even unhealthy relationship. It was March 2020. And I had just come home and finished up my spring break as a Master of Public Health student. As I was leaving, I turned to my mom and I said, "I think I'm gonna see you next week." She said, "Brianna, I hope not. That meant something bad happened." Well, I just started learning about pandemics and I was reading the writing on the wall. A week later, I was home with a lot of snacks, a wine subscription, and a pandemic puppy on the way. On top of that, my family was single-handedly contributing to the toilet paper shortage in this country. Aside from that, my mom had very interesting sanitation habits when it came to our mail. She was constantly washing it. Sarcastically, I was like, "Why are you doing this?" But I burst her bubble with a lot of questions and communication. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, I realized that the science was changing. Many people were growing frustrated with this relationship. Well, I decided that I was going to host a conversation called COVID Conversations to bridge the gap between the community and the researchers, of course, on Zoom. During this 90 minutes, I allowed people to be curious, ask me questions, and most importantly, I cultivated an environment for people to come together. After about 90 minutes, people felt more confident and competent to go back to their families and do the decisions that they thought were the best for at that time. What did that teach me? Many people are afraid to engage with questions when it comes to science and health. On top of that, many people also view science, and it's important to view science as a matter of life, death, sickness, or health. And speaking of relationships, those are wedding vows for some people. Now, Again, thinking back to that importance of questions. When it comes to asking questions, people are afraid. But I can think of a time where many people are very comfortable asking a lot of questions. Gossiping. Now, specifically for myself, I love being on social media, and next thing you know, I come across a very interesting comment. Now, about 45 minutes later, I'm on somebody's best friend's auntie's grandma's page trying to understand who did it and why. On top of that, in real life, let's say I have a friend that knows why the couple broke up. I'm asking who did it, why did it occur, did someone cheat, as I like to say, give me the tea, sis, or I'm being an investigative journalist. Now, I want you to think of science and engaging in science in probably one of the least intimidating activities possible. Blowing bubbles, seriously. Consider the scientist as a bubble wand. That bubble wand is going to dip into information. Let that information be data, research, science experiments. And when that scientist holds their hand up to the wind or that wand is in the air, a strong wind is going to come along and push out that information. Let that wind serve as the media, social media, legacy media, anything to get that conversation going. Here's the thing about bubbles. They can go on and be really pretty to look at, or it can and it should be a call to action for community members to engage with that bubble and pop it with a question. Why? Because that allows for the conversation to continue, for the information to be disseminated and digested, and for that conversation to get out into the world, and for science to be a little bit less intimidating. But speaking of questions, I have one. If as a society we've decided to say there's no such thing as a dumb question, doesn't that mean that we've decided that questions are inherently dumb or ignorant? But on the contrary, questions are vital and important for science. In fact, all science began because somebody was brave enough to ask how come, why not, and even what if. So, what if, instead of being afraid to ask the wrong question or putting so much pressure on yourself to ask the right question, what if you simply start with a question? So with that, I'm now ready for your questions. Thank you.